Hello everyone, Caroline here. Today I want to share 3 cards that I created using action dies and this paper here, design paper as inspiration. This paper comes from a paper block from first edition paper, and it's called Wildflowers. So I really like this background and I want to recreate it with the metallic watercolors from Action. Um, I think this is easily done using these colors, and using also the aquarelle or watercolor paper from Action. So let's get started. I'm just using a piece of card here that I cut, and I am using just for the camera a smaller piece. Usually I would probably use a whole sheet to do this. Then I'm getting my watercolors out and I'm placing them warm colors to the right and cool colors to the left. And I also water them before I use them, so they have some time to activate. Now, looking at this paper, I see that in the background they use kind of like warm colors, and then on the top they use the cool colors. So that's what I'm gonna do here too. I'm just using my brush here and randomly make circles, starting with the yellow color. And I'm using a lot of water, so it's okay if the colors kind of run together. And I'm doing just different sizes. It's really, there's no rhyme or reason to this. I just have fun. And then I'm gonna go to the red or rosy color here and add this as well in between until my sheet is full. And then I'm just taking a little paper towel here and soak up the leftover water on the side. And then I'm gonna let this dry by air, or I'm using or you can use also a heating tool. Now this is dry and you can see already how nicely those colors shimmer. Now I'm going ahead and starting with the cool colors, and I have here little strips that I keep with my watercolor so I can see how the color look on white paper. And here I'm just going over the other colors now to give this transparency look or bohé look for the circles. And again, I'm just mixing it up, no rhyme or reason, just have fun laying the color on top. Also adding some red, darker red color now. So I worked from the light to the darker colors, even though here with this metallic colors it doesn't really matter. They're so transparent. You can lay them on top of each other in any combination. So now again, I'm waiting until this is dry. I'm using my heating tool to dry this. And then we add a third layer. Here we go, it's almost dry. Now I'm going to get my orange here and adding another circle on top. And some blue. Now I'm adding some purple on top. And you can already see through the camera. I will hold this in the light in a little bit, and you can see how nicely these colors shimmer. They are very nice watercolor, metallic watercolors. And I'm also adding some splatters here, just some variety in yellow and in blue. then I'm drying this again, soaking up the water that is like too much. I also like this watercolor paper because you can see this texture from it, and here you can see how it looks in dry and how nicely that shimmers. And I'm using showing you here the contrast to the original, my inspiration, and I think it comes pretty close. Now for more texture, I'm adding a few of water droplets, and I also wanted to test these colors and see how they reactivate. So I'm just letting that sit there for a second or two, and then I'm using a paper towel and pick up the water. And you can see how nicely the colors reactivate with water. Now for more splatters, I'm using this other palette from Action, and this one has kind of like a golden color, so I'm adding this on top for more variety of splatters here, and I also add some white, and for that I'm using the Dina Wakley gloss color in white. This is my to-go-to white splatter color, but you can also use acrylic paint, white paint, and water that down, or white watercolor, whatever you have handy. So now I let this dry. Here you can see again, and we can start with the first card. So card number 1. So all of my cards today gonna be square, and I have these card bases. There are 5.5 by 5.5 inch. For the first card, I'm using this die here, which I really love. It cuts out this frame, and also it cuts out the square in the middle. And then I have also this set that has those little circles, and I am using the little butterfly, and that butterfly will go into the white square. I'm also using this stem set here. It's a Klartext Stempel set from Dani Poise, and I'm gonna use this big sentiment that says Herzlichen Glückwunsch, which means congratulations, and I'm gonna stamp this inside of my card, so I won't have a sentiment on the front. And I'm stamp this out in VersaFine Gray. Now I cut my watercolor piece here to size, and I use the die for this, but you can easily use like a trimmer or another square nested die that you have handy, or you can just cut it about a square about 1/2 inch smaller, so about 5 by 5 inch. Now I'm adding this with a lot of glue, liquid glue, to my background here, and then here I have this cutout piece, and I put a little bit of tape behind the flowers because I didn't want to lose those little dots. I want them to stay inside the flowers, and I'm adding now very thin, that's an 1/8 of an inch foam tape, and I'm gonna lift this up from the background, and I'm adding also little pieces behind the flowers, and add this the dots, so they're gonna stay on this foam tape, and the foam tape behind the little flowers gives this frame more stability when I glue this on the background. So I'm gonna do this for all 4 sides. The little strip, and it's exactly like the size of the die is exactly the size of an 1/8 of an inch that you can put that tape there. Here's my last strip. Here we go, and then I will move the tape, remove the little sticky tape from the back and add this to my card. Here you can see how I cut out the butterfly right into the middle of the square, and this one will also be lifted up, and I'm adding a little foam tape to that. But now first I'm removing this tape from the back of the foam tape, and then I'm adding my frame first, making sure I put the frame correctly in. It's a little, you have to test this out. My die is a little, not wonky, but the square has to go into in a certain way into that frame to fit nicely. So here I glued this on, and then I'm gluing in the butterfly, outer square with the butterfly. Now these are very simple cards. There's no stamping or anything difficult required. I tried to keep those cards very simple for easy, easy remake. So I have this Nuvo drops. This is the iridescent kind. The color is lotus flower, and I thought this goes perfectly with my background. But you can also use any other, drops you have, or sequins, or hero drops, or this little sticky drops, whatever you have. And here's my finished card. Card 2. Now for my second card, I got the inspiration from a card that I saw Luke Collins do with her textures range. So I try to recreate this with an action dies. So I created another background piece, and this time I just make it kind of like a gradient stripy look. I have this die cut here from Tonic Studio Deutschland, which is this von Herzen sentiment, and I have a heart die, and it comes from a nested set. And I have also this background die from Action, which I cut out in white cardstock, and then I took the heart and just cut out a piece of that big die cut and cut it out so it matches, or it's exactly the same size as my heart here. Now I'm using my background piece here, and again I used the nested die. I think it's a Crealise die to cut off my square, but you can again cut out a square with another nested die, or just cut yourself a square with your trimmer. I'm adding again some watercolor splatters with the palette that has the gold from Action, and also I'm using this kind of like orangey pinkish rosé color. Then I let that dry, put it aside, and then I'm gluing my cutout piece here to my heart, and using liquid glue for this. And one tip for Action dies: when you cut them out, use a strong paper, because my experience, they cut out better when you use a good cardstock for this, not a cheap paper, just a good cardstock. And sometimes it also helps if you put like a little paper shim on top of them, when you cut them out. So it's just my experience. Here I cut out that sentiment in white cardstock and in this holographic rose gold, which is also a paper that I have from Action. And I just glued this on so it looks like a little white shadow. Then when my background is dry, I add this with foam tape to my background here, or to my card base. And I'm using 3 big stripes for my background, because this is watercolor paper, and I want this to stay straight and don't sink in at any point. So that's why I'm using a lot of foam tape here. It really helps to keep it all leveled and straight on the card base. Making it straight, making sure. Here we go. Now I'm taking my heart here and I don't do anything to it. I just leave it as it is. And I just add the foam tip on the back to lift this up off the card. Right into the middle. And then I put a little sentiment. I glue this on flat to the right side. First I was thinking maybe on top, but then I was like, no, I want this not covered. So I added it to the right corner, bottom corner. So we have this contrast between the top left and bottom right have like content or have something going on, and the top right and the bottom left are like white for contrast. Now here I'm putting just a few Nuvo drops in different sizes. And this is my finished card. It's very simple again, but I loved how this turns out. And you can do this technique with so many different, dies you have in your stash. Now, here comes my third card. Again, this time I used another piece that I created with the metallic watercolors. I used this die from Action and also this die from Action here, the square with the almost like a mosaic or tile design. And for this background piece, I cut this out now as a square with my Tim Holtz deckled edge trimmer. And this was more like a smoosh technique for this one and splatters. So I just tried how that works with this metallic watercolors, and I think it's also a very cool effect. Now for this card, I'm going around with tattered rose just around the edge to make sure where I cut it, the core of the paper is not white, it's more, has a rosé color to match the background. And I'm doing the same with the smaller piece. And you can see the smaller piece comes from the piece that had the circles that I created in the beginning of the video. Now to assemble this, very simple again. First I'm gonna stamp again a sentiment inside my card, and this time I'm using a different stamp set from Dani Poise, which is this one here, and it has this Beste Wünsche and also those tiny little butterflies, and I will stamp this inside. And I'm using again the gray color from the VersaFine. I think that's very nice with the soft colors of the metallic colors, metallic watercolors. Here we go. And I just have that little spot there that I'm getting rid of, and for some reason I created another spot there, and I'm just erase this with this eraser here, with the sanding eraser. Now I'm adding again foam strips, and these are 1-inch foam strips to my background, making sure it's straight and lifted up from my card base here. Then I'm using the white square that I cut out with the Action die there, and I'm adding it on top flat with liquid glue. And then I'm using the die cut here, the white, and add this on this other smaller square. make sure it's all straight and sticking to my background there. And then, I just add this in like in 45 degrees to my background. But before I do that, I add a little bit of splatters here on my white, so it doesn't look so white. And I'm used this time a very fine brush. And here's my tip: the smaller you want your splatters, the smaller should be your brush, and the less water you should use. The more water you use, the splatters will be thicker, and even the bigger your brush is, the bigger will be your splatters. So that's just a little tip, because it took me a while to figure out how I make the splatters just the size I wanted. And I have like favorite brushes which make different types of splatters. So just a tip there. So here I'm adding now foam tape to my square, and I add it on top 45 degrees. And of course in the middle it's screaming for a dot. And I also add some dots around it, but you could also put a sequence or a glitter dot or whatever you have handy in the middle of this tile. So, and here is my finished card. Now here are all 3 cards again, and I show them to you. Move them around so you can see the shimmer. That's the first one. I'm hoping you like this video, and if you do, just give me a thumbs up. And if you have questions or want to communicate with me, you can use the comments down below. I'm happy to answer them. I'm always happy to see comments from you guys. Tell me where you're from. I would love to know. And yeah, I hope you got some inspiration, and I see you in my next video. Until then, bye.